And I think for my whole life, I never wanted to be in a position where I regretted the things that I said or did. And you can make mistakes along your life, right? Life is about this growth process. You're not going to be correct at all times, but I think a lot of your life comes down to accepting, realizing, and talking about those mistakes. So who you were at 14 and what you were about at 14 is very different at 28, but that's okay. Just talk about it. There's conversations that need to be had. It's we were reckless at 14.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Eli and I were even talking about it a second ago, because like, all this looting that's happening, right? Yeah. I mean, even it wouldn't have been a crazy idea. We were talking about that. If I saw all my friends when I was in high school being as reckless as I was, to be pulled into that situation.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think it's people being stuck in their house for a really long time, and as adults we can find other mediums and platforms to release that energy. But at the end of the day, every human comes with an energy, and you need to release that energy in some kind of way, whether it's through conversation, through exercise, through food, through whatever. There's a baseline of calories, aka energy, that every human consumes and needs to consume every day. So if they're not doing that by sitting in their crib all day, it's going to come out. It's going to build up. That energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's one of the first principles you learn in science. It's gonna build up. It's gonna be there. So
yeah, I think it's very interesting.
I mean, like specifically the U.S. Like what?
No, go on, please.
Specifically in the U.S., it's like, yo, you guys gave these people, a family, a $1,200 stimulus check for 3 months of no work, and thought that was going to be okay. Like, let's break it down to how much 1,200 in 3 months is per day. And yo, I saw this interview and it was hilarious. And I can't remember who it was exactly. He was like, yo, we live in such a safe place in New York City. Everything is glass. So you guys have lived in like glass for so long that you guys really didn't think that someone was going to walk down the street and just shatter that glass and get something. For how long? Everything was glass.
Yeah.
That's how safe they felt, that it's okay to have this like thousands of dollars of merchandise, millions of dollars collectively of merchandise behind these glasses. And we went around that for 10 years? And like no one said anything. It was a hilarious interview.
Even if you think of it from like the glasses perspective, like it's very naive of them to think like, yo, see this dope shit? Well, you want it? Like, you can't fucking have it. So like, it's just been kind of sitting there teasing, and like I'm beginning to see that the construct of our city is very different after what's happened.
For sure. You put something, you like rattle something in someone's face, and you just keep rattling it, and then you're like, oh, okay, you can maybe have that if you tried. Who's not going to go for it? Who's not going to want to touch it?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's wild. So, man, I have so many questions. I mean, just even around your guys' relationship. I guess, but
I have so many questions about your guys' relationship.
Yeah, we can dive into that. Yeah, Elijah and I, we met how many years ago? 4 years ago. You're muted.
2017.
Damn. Wow. Yeah, we met in Bali at a dojo co-working space, and it was a barbecue, which is like the craziest time. And if I remember, walking around there, I grew up in Detroit, and you kind of can point out the homies. And I saw Elijah, and I walked over to him, and it was very refreshing. I remember being with somebody else who grew up in a city, who's from America. Yeah. We struck up a conversation, and then as Elijah puts, I gave him a business card. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, and then we became friends, and just hung around the same circles. And for many years, we were just like homies making art in Bali, and collabing on a number of different things. And then we had this weird construct of working together, in a lot of different ways. After Elijah like went off, became a programmer, I've been programming for almost a decade now. We made the attempt to work together in a much bigger way, and just all kinds of interesting lessons learned from that experience. You know, after a couple of years of then separating that partnership, we've now come back together with the same foundation of what we're doing, which is taking ideas and turning them into something useful. You know, I feel like the ethos of what we're doing hasn't really changed, but now it's evolved, and I feel like we're finding the model, you know, under this new context of stability in both of our lives to really take this thing to the next level and support people like you who, you know, might not come from a technical background and are looking for the support to go from 0 to 1 in whatever your ambition is.
Wait, that's so dope. Going back to, you know how people talk about like time and place, and you meet two people and it could be the perfect place and the perfect everything, but if the timing's not right, none of it matters. Yeah. That's just what I'm getting. It's like the perfect time and place for two souls to connect that have the same idea in life, which is to connect people and for people to just be heard. So yeah, I'm glad. And we're living in this dope era where technology allows for that. Like, where are you sitting right now? Where are you?
I'm in my client's office in Venice, California.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm CTO of a superfoods company out here, and I'm handle all the website, the apps, everything digital.
Yeah, that's so dope. You're out in California, Eli's in Oregon, and I'm in New York City.
Look at that.
Yeah, it's wild. And I feel like we, you know, it's time, like we have this blessing of like being able to communicate around these ideas. And even, you know, we've been afforded a lot of abundance in our lives. And I'd really like to start giving that back and reinvest it into people who, I'll tell you a story, like everybody I know wants to talk to me because I make software. Everyone's got an idea. Everyone has this ambition to instill their vision on the world and make that big impact. And I feel like I have a lot more to offer to a lot more people. And I feel like this will be the platform to do so.
Yeah, for sure. I read in this book that there's 3 stages of life. So the first stage is this dependent stage where you see all the stimuli around you and you're dependent on receiving that stimuli. You're dependent on your parents, your education system, whatever it is. And that's your beginning stages of what kind of evolves when your brain's evolving. And the second stage is that selfish period that you go into your life where it's me. Like, what am I going to do? Where do I stand in the world? What am I about? Who am I going to be? And the final stage in life is the selfless stage. Now, how am I going to give back? Now that I know who I am, how can I give back to my community? How can I help my community? And I think I don't believe in ages, you know? I just think it's like different. Yeah, fuck that. It's
yeah, no.
Any man-made concept, I'm not about. Like time, me and Eli talk about this all the time. Like time is a man-made, age is a man-made concept from a science background. The only time that age is relevant is how your body is evolving through that age. And we're even learning now that that's different for everyone. So you can't really compare someone, but obviously you need those. We'll go into that too. But you need to have, you know, your baseline. So it's cool. I'm excited. I can talk for hours.
Oh, dude, I could riff on this for. I mean, it's like age is a crazy concept because it's like the number of laps a rock has made around a flaming rock, right? I mean, even the entire sum of human history is, from the universe perspective, the universe took a breath, humans existed, and then exhaled, and they were gone, right? So age and really time as a construct, it is relative to our own perception of it in many ways.
100%.
But I feel those 3 levels though, because like I'll tell you something. When you and I were in Bali, I was so much in the selfish stage. I didn't know who the fuck I was, and I was very much so in this discovery period. And I feel like it's a whole new context now that I've established a base, I've established a home, and I've established who I am and what I have to offer and give back to the world. And so I think it's very interesting. Like, I've never seen anyone put it in that context, and I think it's a brilliant lens to look at it through.
it's powerful because the three of us connected. When I would say all three of us are now in the selfless stage of our life. Because me and E met, you know, going back to what you, like our relationship, we were on a dependent stage, obviously because we met so young, but then we also immediately met in such a selfish stage. And we've kind of remained, and I've seen Eli's growth through all of them, and he's seen it through mine. And three of us connecting now is at a point where all three of us are more on the selfless stage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even thinking about the context, I know this isn't couples counseling, but I appreciate you bringing up this Irfa, all this stuff.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Even like when E and I decided to work together, I said to him, I'm like, yo, I really want to go back to Bali because I know I'll be good there. In a lot of ways, like it wasn't his decision. I forced that upon our relationship. In a lot of ways, I was dependent on this context, or I felt that dependence on Bali as an environment for me to be okay. So in a lot of ways, even like E, when you and I were originally working together, I feel like personally, I was still in that dependent stage and probably like transitioning into selfish. So I've never heard it like said that way, but the truth is like, I don't have any dependence on anything at this point in my life. Like I don't have, I mean, my selfish ambitions, they're definitely there, but I feel like they're in alignment with like bringing in that green energy. I really feel like I'm in a place where the more I attract, the more good I can create. And I feel like finding that alignment in terms of your selfish ambitions and the selfless ambitions creates the self, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful.
Wow, I'm so glad.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
It's also interesting to mention that I think to fully prosper through a selfish stage, you need to not have a home base. You need to be rattled up a little bit. You need to have your ideas questioned. You need to question yourself. You need to get into those moments where you're like, what am I doing? Like, who am I? Why am I acting like this? Why am I behaving like this? And also to let go of ideas of what you see yourself going to. So letting go of this concept of you feeling like you need to go to Bali, you know, you feeling like you need to belong or go somewhere because that's where you're going to learn and that's where you're going to grow. And I think once you develop through those first two stages and get to that third and final selfless stage, you realize a lot about what home base means to you. It's not just about the future of where the journey can take you. It's about accepting where you are in the present and what that present can bring to you. And having a base in order to do that as a human in general just allows for so much more growth.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, what the fuck are they putting in the water in Brooklyn? Like, what is it like? How does this? Like, what context did you guys come out of? Because like, are there more of you? Like, what the fuck?
There aren't.
That's
Wait,
wild.
funny enough, talking about kind of bringing all of it back to full circle, I was on Instagram, and so obviously like being in the medical field in general, and I'm applying for residency next year, you have to be very careful. You have to brand yourself a certain way. It goes back to the point that I was making. Like you have to be a certain person in order to do all of that. And so obviously I voice my opinions as much as I can, but also assimilate. So I was scrolling through social media and I see one of our mutual friends from high school kind of post that they're going to be at this protest. And so I was like, yo, I'm thinking about going too. I didn't want to go alone. So I hit him up and I was like, yo, let's meet up in front of the Brooklyn Library and we'll just kind of go together. We go to the protest. We have this moment afterwards. We're kind of seeing this protest sort of shift to a violent protest. So we're taking the energy and like going somewhere else because we're not about this. We go and we're just like chilling in the park. And it was just kind of funny because seeing their growth through all of this too, I was like, it's kind of what you said, like what's in the water here? But I don't think it's that. I think it's just, I think throughout your life, you're always meant to meet certain people. And sometimes you grow out of relationship with those people. And then sometimes you go back in those relationships with the people. But I think if you're meant to connect, you're just meant to connect. But going back to it, a lot of people don't think like this.
I agree.
Yeah, you're touching on so many things I want to dive into. But what's interesting is a couple things. Even mentioning Instagram. You know, we were talking about earlier. Elijah brought up a good point. He's like, you know, what are these new ways of protesting, or what could they be? maybe we need new methods of protesting. I find it very interesting when everyone posted that black square. In a way, it's like a little protest because this has become our new voice in a lot of ways. So many things I want to touch on. I don't even know where to go with this.
you gotta write it down. There's gonna be conversations that we keep having.
Yeah, and one of the other things you mentioned that I consume hacker news every day. Hacker news is like Y Combinator's like main source of information around new technology. And a very interesting thing got thrown into that feed, which was the NSA, America's governing, like, all-seeing eye, backing up Minnesota to determine who was looting at these protests. Using all your GPS-enabled data is all the information that they have in order to determine who was out protesting past curfew under these laws and breaking laws, and helping the Minnesota Police Department with it. So that information is not only known, but that information is also being offered up to government bodies. And my fear is that, one thing about government is once they have that approval to embark and integrate these sort of technologies, they normally don't take them away. So my question is, like, is there a liability in that even showing up to these protests could mark you a certain way, right? This information,
before I even went, I was telling my sister, I'm like, I'm recording everything. I'm sitting in the middle of history when my kids asked me what I did. I want to you see these pictures and stuff, but my sister was like, don't post anywhere. Before you post it, you have to go to a third-party site, not any of the social media sites. Blur out the people in the protest, and then think about putting that on there. So my sister's a physics and computer engineer. She just graduated, and so she has that. Actually, we're going to connect you with my sister because she's all about this as well. And so she was kind of telling me, and I thought about it, and she was like, do you know the kind of facial recognition that we have now? Do you know how many of our rights that we gave up to allow for them to be able to track us just based on one centimeter of our face?
Wow.
Yeah, it's exactly what you were saying. And she's like, you just kind of need to be careful. So there's so much that you need to think about before making any move in life, that it makes you not want to make any of these moves. And it just goes back to, is that what they wanted you to do in the first place?
Yeah, I would have sat here. Like, if this was out somewhere, if this was on YouTube, I would have sat here and watched this entire thing. Because I'm just like in awe of this conversation.
You're sitting here. Your voice matters.
Yeah. No, you routed it.
Yeah, you made this happen.
So, what's interesting is, even going back to that idea, those filters, like Instagram as well as TikTok, have a filter where they can obscurify the body. That does exist in one format, which is great, because like now the proof of concept exists, and I feel like the prospect of integrating that into a platform, or even to make it mandatory, like even based on your geolocation, right? Like, this is a high risk environment, right? But now the question becomes, do we blur out the protesters, but also keep the police in there? Because the technology is smart enough to make that differentiation. One thing that machine learning is explicitly talented at is image recognition. So even knowing who is a cop versus who isn't, or even looking for the badge or for certain indicators of that, it could be an interesting recontextualization of the technology.
You can give yourself a mask without ever having to physically wear a mask. Right? That's what I'm hearing from this. You can make yourself look all types of crazy without having to physically put any of that on.
This would be a perfect time for you to talk about this concept.
Yeah. Okay. I'm excited.
Naturally led to this point.
I'm really excited about this. So just a quick thing. So me and E, when I found out that E was into programming, all this stuff, I was like, E, I have all these ideas. And he goes to me, he's like, I'm only going to help you with one idea. And he's like, you need to be, I pitched him Elijah, how many ideas have I pitched you? from like Uber in the Caribbean islands to I can't even. And he was like, I'm helping you with one idea only. And so I ended up calling him. He's like, one idea, that's it. So I ended up calling him 2 days ago, and I gave him this idea that I had come up with in a conversation with my brother and my sister. And he's quiet for a second, and I've never seen Eli really quiet about my ideas. He'll always just be like, are you sure you want to do this? So he's quiet, and he's like, wait, I think this is a great idea. And he's like, hop on this call. So I'm hoping. And okay, so how this idea sort of kind of came about was, so I think of my parents as your typical American parents, or your typical kind of baby boomer parents, different than our generation. And their concept of news and the voice and the opinions that they hear is, like I said, news. But their idea of news is like Fox 5 News, ABC News, Channel 7 News. And my idea of news and my generation's idea of news was Instagram, TikTok, these videos that live people recorded. And so my brother and I were having this conversation, and he was just like, how do I protect myself? And he is pro-guns, I'm anti-guns. And so he was talking about, he's like, if police knock down my door right now with assault rifles in my face, I don't have anything to protect me. So he was like, this is why I'm pro-guns. And so I'm like, so what you're telling me is if they put down the door and they had guns in our faces, you would retaliate with guns. And he's like, yeah, that's just the American way of how you protect yourself. That's what's written in our Constitution and our amendments. And so I told him, I'm like, so instead of the police shooting down 2 people, now you're going to have all 6 of us shot because you're going to retaliate guns with guns. And so he thought about that, and he goes, yeah, that's fair. And I'm like, so you know what made these police officers scared now? It's not the guns. They're not scared from guns. It's when someone pulls out a phone and puts it in their face, that's what makes them a little scared. And even if they're not scared in that moment, later on, the repercussions that we're seeing, the reason why the George Floyd movement made its movement was because this strong Black woman pulled out her phone and recorded this. And in New York City, you can't record an arrest being happening. We don't have the right to do that. And so the reason why her video ended up going viral was because she posted it on her Instagram, on her TikTok. So I told my brother I'm like, it would be kind of dope to have sort of like an emergency live app where you didn't even have to go click IG Live. You didn't even have to click TikTok Live or do any of that. You just pull out a phone, press an app, and it automatically starts recording in real time. And whatever is happening at that real time, it's shoot out to say 10-mile radius of people that also have that app. And so me and Eli started talking about this idea, and I was like, the cool concept is that this could turn into the news. It's the news of the 21st, 22nd century. We don't need Fox 5 and all these people. We don't need these specific reporters. Elijah Johnston is a reporter. Irfa Khan is a reporter, because what I see in real time and what I show on my phone in live time and the commentary that I give in live time is worth more than the censorship the media is giving us or the point of view that media is giving us. It gives us a broader point of view. And I think that this is the most important time to kind of release this, because you have TikTok and Instagram that have IG Lives. You have TikTok that, I mean, the way that I see all of this and like the brutality that's happening is through these apps, but these apps aren't meant for that. These apps are meant, they're like social media, kind of more relaxed, chill apps that are being used for this idea. But why not create an app that's meant specifically for that? The news of the 21st and 22nd century.
Yeah, I love the concept around technology as a weapon, but not as a weapon of defense, right? It's like you immediately have this means to broadcast and let it be known what is happening in your immediate home, right? Yeah. And it's interesting because you're absolutely right in that these cops are fearful. There's an interesting Twitter post by the head of the New York Police Department. I could be wrong in saying New York, but he said our brothers, police officers, are going to be wearing a black band around their police badge to celebrate, to remember our brothers who have fallen during COVID. What's actually happening is it's covering your police badge number.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of being recorded and then retaliation being, and like it's a valid fear and retaliation against themselves as well as their families. And being held accountable for what's gonna go down when these recordings come out.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what you're saying, is that we kind of live in this world right now where even the technology that we have right now, you can figure out who someone is from an angle of someone's face. So I think it's really important to kind of understand, like, I have so much footage from my protest that I went to on this phone. Everyone here, the things that we all saw. And I think it's important to broadcast that and for people to realize that their voice matters. For people to realize that what they're recording is real news. This is things that people are going to look back and be like, this is history in the making. And at the time, you needed a degree to be a reporter. You need to be on television to be a reporter. That's not the case anymore. Thankfully, we live in this world right now where we have so much power that we don't even realize. And it's important for people to sort of realize that and understand that and put it all out there.
So can I just go back to the concept for a second? So
yeah, this is where you come in, because I talk a lot of shit. You need to
no, because I'm
make it happen.
None of this is shit.
I think it's such, and when you said it to me the other day, like I was like, wow, that's such a clear gap. You know, the fact that we still consider news to be like the credible source of news.
Yeah. When
we're all walking around with 4K cameras in our pockets, you know, and like what's happening right now is a direct result of that type of citizen journalism, right?
Yeah.
Just like people out there capturing real life happening in real time.
I like the citizen journalism. Yeah. That's I'm actually going to write that idea down. I'm going to write some things down that we talked about so that we can make this happen. I'm super passionate about this idea. And Nicholas, you're the man.
wait. I still have a lot more to talk about. Hold on. A couple things. First thing is, what's so interesting about this AI technology, I read an interesting article a couple years ago where people were claiming, and I dug into this, and it's proved to be, I guess, true based on empirical data, that the AI is being so good, they can recognize based on your face if you're homosexual.
Wow.
Which is fascinating.
That's wild.
So, you know, but even the thought of that, because, you know, AI is a black box, the fact that these countries which repress homosexuality in many different places, even us as early as, well, even a decade ago, right? You know, it's becoming progressively more of a risk, right? All this information that we can capture very quickly on these cameras and then being used against us. So it kind of feels like there's two components to this. Like one is capturing what is happening and saying, hey, I need help, right? Like this shit's escalating very quickly. And this technology is now my defense. I'm not using a gun. I am using the weapon that's in my pocket. As well as, I think there's a bigger conversation around, again, weaponizing technology, right? Like how good these cameras and these video cameras in combination with these AI machines, what sort of liabilities are they introducing to our society, and how can we, as a platform, like evolving from an idea into a platform, actually integrate the right bits of technology for privacy, right? How do we show the perpetrators and also protect those who are innocent in that specific scenario and being able to pick up on that immediately?
Have you heard of the Citizen app?
Yeah, very much so. I've been relying on it because I'm in Venice. I'm in Venice Beach.
Okay.
Right? Like Lincoln was decimated by rioters a couple of weeks ago. Even like a block away from this office, everything is boarded up. It's some of those beautiful graffiti exemplifying all the things that are happening in the world right now. I was going to mention Citizen definitely would be something to look at, but it's not to say that you should be dismayed by that. It's actually a proof of concept and a proof that, and there's a couple different proof of concepts. One, Citizen is I think it's in the top 10 in the App Store. The other thing that was very interesting, what climbed to the number one top of the App Store were police scanner apps. So this last week, police scanning and listening into all these police scanners climbed very rapidly. So I feel like there's a lot of learning, like the simplicity of a police scan, being able to go in there and listen to the problems that are happening in your immediate area, as well as Citizen being able to geolocate everything that's happening in our immediate neighborhood. Those are both learning.
I think the takeaway as to why these apps kind of went up is what do people want, right? That's the whole concept of whatever we're developing. We're selling out a product. So what do people want? Location. They want to be able to know what's going on within their vicinity, right? So that's the common theme between the Citizen app and the other app that you were talking about. It needs to be within their vicinity because people feel like they can relate to that and they can do something when it's closer as opposed to miles away. So I think it's interesting. I think we can definitely take concepts from other apps and build this idea if you feel like it's something that needs to, an app that needs to be made.
Well, I guess, one of the things, thinking through what the components that you're going to need, you need the ability to record live video, right? Be able to post that somewhere very rapidly, and then congregate that information so that other people could see it. I feel like as an MVP, like minimum viable product, going from 0 to 1 in a proof of concept, you could even use a hashtag on Instagram. If people are informed that this hashtag means, hey, I am in immediate danger and I need help and this needs attention right away, it could even be a hashtag, and you can actually search the Instagram API to find every instance of that hashtag being reported, find the ones that stand out, and put that and broadcast that to a website, if you will. So most of the underlying technology you need for a proof of concept and to get the concept into the wild really does exist today. And like, it's always this question of, how do we prove the model in such a way where then we have that momentum in order to have the resources to build that into its own standalone application and platform.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think the difference is though, that's not the goal of those apps. It just happens to be the natural development led to those apps being utilized for those things. But even if you look at a geotag of, say, like, for example, when I was looking at where the protests were happening in New York, I had to like look up New York, like click on the geotag of New York and then just kind of scroll through and do all of that stuff, which, I mean, time is the most precious. This time is the only thing in this world that we actually need to value. And that took up a lot of time as opposed to us kind of just being like, because that's not what Instagram's job is. And that's sort of what Citizen's job is. But the cool thing about Instagram is I can see these live videos and streams happening.
Right.
Yeah,
so I think there's exactly. But there's a divide. I think it's important to have clear goals, and that's sort of what makes applications or whatever get big. It's you have this goal, you have this idea, and that's what you're kind of used for, and you can transform from that, but you can't stray too far away from it, because what's going to happen once this movement starts dying down, which it eventually will, Instagram's going to go back to what it's for, which is,
right.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something, like the information that's being gathered through something, it doesn't even have to be Instagram, right? Through a lot of these geolocation-based video recording platforms can be recontextualized, right? Because we already have the location data. We already, if with the proper hashtag, it's already in a format which through an API call, you can post to a website, right? Under that recontextualized format of, this is a place for people who are experiencing X, Y, and Z and feel like they are in immediate danger because of police brutality, like your brother's situation you pointed out, because of rioting and looting. Another contextualization, like it is a place where you have all this already built and available to you, and by aggregating that into just a feed onto a website, which is a no-code setup, correct me if I'm wrong, Eli, you could actually recontextualize that as the place to go for the latest up-to-date news. On the same end, if you have that information, location, this is a liability, I'm in danger, combined with even an email notification, an SMS notification, again, something you can throw up yourself, then you have the funnel you're talking about, and you have a proof of concept that you can then build out.
Yeah, that's actually, see, I don't know any of these things. I just, like, you guys are the tech, you know these things exist. I honestly have no idea. So you're going to be talking our generation. Did I freeze?
Yeah, you froze for a second.
Right. So like, I'm talking, you guys are way more knowledgeable, I would say, in that, like, I am my parents, right, of this generation. Right. So we need, like, I'm not going to understand that.
Right.
Well, I will say this, everything I just described, you can do.
Yeah.
Right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
For sure.
Like, having just going and finding the right form. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can help you like find specific resources. You could set it up so you have the location data, you have the hashtag, and you have that into a website, and you have someone subscribe to any update to that website, and you can build the platform that you need without even engaging engineers to begin with, right? Like you can have everything that you imagine in the form of a website. Like I would even, I'm not going to try and like, you know, I never like to say anything's easy as an engineer, but with going from 0 to 1 on this I think could be done in a matter of weeks, like if that.
I agree. I think the only point that may require some engineering knowledge would be getting the feed via the Instagram API.
Right.
Oh yeah, so this was the other part of the idea. It was because people still use Instagram and TikTok, and the reason why TikTok blew up the way that it did was because you had the option to automatically post that onto your IG, automatically SMS and send that out. So I think an important part of this is to be able to gather whatever you record, whatever you say, whatever is happening at real time, and link that back to your other socials. So back to your IG and like automatically goes to your IG live or automatically post on your IG or TikTok. The whole point is integration.
Right. Which is why I think that further kind of validates the first approach of using the tools that already exist. Like as the first iteration, you know, because it's like you have to think about the fact that TikTok and Instagram, these are, you know, billion-dollar pieces of technology, right? Tons of money's going into building very sophisticated technology that can capture this stuff in real time, host it, upload it, blah, 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 blah. Also, these are things that people are already used to using.
Yeah, that's the important part.
On it, you know? So, and you have an Instagram API, and basically what that means is that other programs can integrate with Instagram. I can retrieve things from Instagram, right? I am another program interacting with Instagram's program, right? So I can get stuff from Instagram, i.e. your website can get stuff from Instagram's database. And so if you had a hashtag, which was just the hashtag that was used to capture these moments of citizen journalism and these moments of emergency, and just had that be the default hashtag that people use when they're capturing these things, and then you're creating a feed that's taking just that hashtag stuff and filtering it onto a site. And I think that's like a V1, you know, that's a starting point, and then it can kind of iterate and evolve from there. But I think in terms of executing on the concept, that's probably the path of least resistance and the most effective starting point, because people are already using these platforms.
Yeah, I mean, and like just kind of drive that point home. And I appreciate, like, we're still trying to find our niche in this space, by the way. So like actually going through this process is really uncovering a lot. I read a blog post by a Snapchat engineer a couple days ago where he talked about the importance of the lack of latency opening up the app and getting the camera running. They rewrote the entire app to eliminate 300 millisecond delay in getting the camera open on Android. So, and I'm not saying that this doesn't justify, like if you was built from scratch, it definitely could serve the purpose better. With that said, a lot of the information in the form of the video, the location data, it's really, the design challenge is no longer, you know, putting a bunch of hours into engineering. It's now telling the story, why this matters, right? How this can be used to protect yourself and broadcast to the world what you've experienced. Because the truth is, if you post something on Twitter, like how many videos of police abuse are now going undetected because the right person hasn't retweeted them, because the right person hasn't read them yet. Like this can be an aggregated place where anybody who's experiencing these difficulties under the right construct can then be put on display, and the right people can pick up on that and propagate that information to a greater audience. That feels like the goal to me, is to really make someone feel safe and secure in that, hey, if I need help, this is a place where it can go. So you could even like, you know, we talk about APIs, which is an approved public interface. So even like taking this feed, the API through Instagram already exists that can be routed to something like Citizen, that can be routed into police forces. So you have the aggregate of all that data. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of interesting learning of either, you know, citizen journalists coming in and taking a look at that feed, as well as people to could propagate it into the right networks.
I think it kind of bridges two things. So one, you talked about privacy. We've given up enough of our privacy without even realizing it. You know, you say that when you, in order for us to even use the Snapchat filters, you have to allow it to use your location. And
right.
to me, every time I click accept, I'm like, why do they need to know where I am in order for me to use a filter? So you've given up a lot of your privacy without even realizing it. But the issue, and I think this is the drive home point, is that we've given up a lot of our privacy for things that don't really matter. So I think people will be okay with giving up their privacy for things that do really matter. So to have their voice heard, to record these things, I think privacy is an issue that's sort of gone right now in the United States, maybe even just worldwide, with how technology is sort of evolving. So I think that also is very important. But the whole point, or to take a point in this is like, we want privacy that we give up within our rights. Like, I'm doing this because I'm allowing this to happen. I think it just goes back to the idea that the take home idea in all this, it's like, I have power in my voice to tell you what the news is based on my perspective. I have power in what I'm recording. I have power in what I'm sending out. And that power is something that I feel like people have just felt like they've gotten taken away through all of this. Right. So if we kind of advertise it as that you have your point of view, you have your power, you have the power to give up your privacy when you want to, or not if you choose not to, I think it'll really hit home to what a lot of people are thinking, and to why I wanted to like make this idea a thing for E.
I think that's a strong message. I think that's a strong angle, you know, in terms of really driving home what the value of it is, right? Because these are empowerment tools.
Exactly. It's exactly what he said. There's a weapon in your pocket.
Yeah.
That doesn't actually cause blood to shed.
Yeah.
Like, that is the craziest. If you went back in the day and you were like, yo, there's a weapon in my pocket that will not cause a human to die, they would look at you like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, very true.
And now we live in a world where, Nicholas, is exactly what you said. This is a weapon, and this weapon will not cause someone to die.
Yeah, it's this, you know, this takes me way back, but you know, that's always been a core concept of mine of, you know, it's almost like using, like, if you can recontextualize the phone as a defense mechanism, right? Yeah, many years ago, I built an app that was designed to stop texting while driving. My grandmother was killed by someone who was texting while driving. So the reason why I originally got into technology and learned to program was to build an app which automatically responds to text messages and phone calls while you're in the vehicle. And there's a lot of interesting learnings from that. You know, it was an admirable cause, but the truth is that these choke points of technology, being the Apple iOS ecosystem, you know, that comes with power. So anytime you become a choke point for technology, you know, that's where a lot of the power lies of what is and is not appropriate for the network and that network's goals. I agree with everything you're saying. You know, I'm thinking through, like, I'm trying to think of even like what this could mean 3 weeks out. You know what the best thing that could happen as a result of, if you were to take this approach? I think what the goal kind of might want to be, I would make it so you leverage the Instagram platform with your hashtag, with the story behind it, and like the premise. Irfa, you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
You just froze for a second. If you could actually set up this feed with your hashtag, my goal, and this is going to sound crazy, is I would try and get that hashtag banned. I would actually call out a lot of these platforms on their shit who have the potential to make this big change, right? To actually say that hashtag is now causing, because like what you're describing is capturing distressful situations of police brutality, of the shit that these corporations want to keep off of these platforms, right? And the truth is, like, I was going, ironically, yesterday, I was going through the hashtags that are banned on Instagram. There's just some random shit on there. It's like stuff you're like, wait, why is this banned?
I didn't even know there were hashtags that were banned.
Oh, look at the list. It's fucking crazy. They're like, because every one of these is a story, right? Like, why the fuck? It's like, I can't remember. It was like, one of them was like boys soccer. Like that hashtag or something, like, it was the craziest thing. But what will happen is, inevitably, if you are uploading and broadcasting these very distressful situations, these corporations who stand for Black communities and the protection of people, all these principles, will probably ban that hashtag. And that is a story people can get behind, right? And it's like, if that happens, you will have enough momentum to piss off Facebook that will justify the creation of a standalone platform for these purposes. Like that's where, yeah.
It goes back to that black square when people started realizing, like, don't put Black Lives Matter, but Blackout Tuesday. Right. It goes back to that because you assimilated, and like, for example, for me, I put the square whatever, didn't hashtag anything, but people that did, and then it made me think back, I'm like, why am I even fucking doing this? Like, what's actually the point? Isn't the point to share out? So why am I gonna block out my feed with just these black squares instead of sharing out information? And then like 4 hours into it, I was like, screw this, and I just like started posting again, like all the stuff that I was saying. But it's the same kind of concept that you're driving in, and it was strong enough for me to be like, yo, what am I doing?
Man, that was such an interesting movement. There's so many things I want to say about the black squares, but you know,
there should be a Black Mirror episode about the black squares.
Well, here's what's funny about the black square. I've thought so much about this. The inspiration from around the black squares. Guess where it came from? Fire Festival. They did the orange squares. Yeah. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but there's this amazing social media campaign of all these huge influencers just posting an orange square. So the inspiration for the black square actually came from fucking Firefest. Yeah. Which was the biggest blunder in recent memory, but I digress. It's a whole different thing.
But our friend Xander was saying, he was like, when he posted the square, he hashtagged Trump 2020, Trump supporters, vote Trump, and he goes, those are the hashtags that he did for the black square, so that when people clicked those, they would just see this black square that had nothing to do with anything they were really about. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting idea. I didn't even think to approach it that way.
Well, you want to know what it felt like to me when I woke up that morning, I saw the black squares. From my personal stance, I think it meant, because this is our voice now. Social media is how we communicate and with the world nowadays. To me, it felt like I was saying, without any of the knowledge of like people talk about how the algorithm interprets stuff, like they know how algorithms interpret stuff. But anyway, what it felt like to me was, I hear you. We hear you. We hear you and we stand with you, and I'm going to be a part of this movement, right? That was me raising my hand and saying, okay, like, message heard, and I'm behind whatever action is necessary to get us to that next step, right? And the truth, like, there's so much crazy stuff going around these black squares being posted of like, oh, you're stopping the voices, and like, this is a conspiracy to suppress all the stuff in the hashtags and all the I hear you, and it can be interpreted that way. But the truth is, every individual felt something different when they posted that square, right?
I think there's so much power when you say, I hear you. You know, but to me, when I see you, I hear you says a lot.
Yeah.
I hear you says, I have a voice. I hear you says, I have power. I hear you says that you're unified. There's so much, like, you just said it in the sentence, but to me, I'm like, yo, that sentence says a lot.
I didn't grow up black. Yeah, I grew up in Detroit, but you know, it's a whole different context. And the truth is, living in Venice and being 3 blocks away from these riots, multiple people were shot, blocks away from my home, right? For the first time in my life, I'm being forced into the situation where this conversation cannot be stopped any longer. Like I'm being put into the situation as hundreds of thousands of people have. All of New York was on fire. Right, a lot of these neighborhoods are being put in a position where we are forced to have this conversation. I feel like it was necessary. So I feel like to each individual, whether you are in the suburbs of Omaha Nebraska, or, you know, where all these protests are happening, it's going to mean something different to each individual. So to even like to say like, oh, this is the mission, or like this is the conspiracy, or anything behind it, it's like, I feel like this meant something very different to the people. And like, in a way, it's like, okay, you know, this is my little way to participate. This is me of saying, hey, I'm here for you. And it's a very, very interesting moment when I started seeing that. And even like people who I was very surprised posted that. And I also was talking to Elijah about this earlier, the people who didn't post.
Yeah.
You know, that will be recognized, because now this is history. Internet is history, and this time period matters. And the way that we're using these tools to express or not express our positions will be made known.
I hear you. I'm listening.
Well, so I actually want to, you know, I wanted to run a different idea about you, because Elijah, you know, you described your app as citizen journalism. And this actually, we talked about an idea before you hopped on the phone, of all these companies and corporations are coming out with their stance with Black Lives Matter, with the protests, and saying, we are with you, right?
Oh, I have opinions on it.
Right. But hear me out here. Now there's a lot of companies, some of which I don't even, like, friends own, that have not come out that way. So when Elijah described this in citizen journalism and got kind of the creative juices flowing, I felt like it will be necessary to point out who was with and who was not with, who spoke up and came out and made their voices known versus who did not. And what's interesting is if you just created a website where saying, hey, these guys posted X, Y, and Z, and these guys did not, that will speak mountains to what corporations are standing in alignment with these newfound values of this new world, this brave post-racism evolution that we're going through, versus those who stay quiet and were satisfied with the status quo. So it becomes a place of, you know, if I'm thinking of where do I want to spend my dollar, which is your vote, right? This will be one of the places I stop to determine, hey, were these guys on the side of this new history, or did they stay silent and complacent?
We want to hear people's voices, but we also want to know who has a voice.
Right.
It's both ways. You can stay silent through the matter and not have a voice at all, and that says a lot. I think I posted and I was like, staying silent is being part of the injustice. But also speaking also says that. And it just goes back to that same idea. It's just give people have power in their voices, and we need them to feel that way. We need them to understand that. And these companies made a point to make these things, and people are making a point to also make these things. But I think to me, it's very important to hone in that, you know, people's voices matter. They're the new journalism. They're the new news. They're the new, like, I think when we see history in the future, how I see it is like, you're going to open not even a book, but you're going to open a screen, and this is real time.
Yeah.
What you and I posted, like, that's what news is going to be. It's not going to be Fox 5 or ABC News.
And I think this is all, for me, it's, there's a theme here, right? Of like, this is a weapon, right? Or this is power. Our wallets, like Nick said, are also power, right? And I think what these tools or the ideas we're talking about, I think what it enables is it enables us to better direct our activism. You know, it allows us, because activism comes in so many different forms. You know, there's so many different forms of activism. It's not one specific activity, right? It's a way of living. It's a way of supporting what you believe in actively, right? And I think the fact that the word activist has to be used so much suggests that a lot of people are pretty passive, which is the truth. But I think when you start to get into territory where we're looking at this as, you know, we can be reporters, we're looking at our wallets as we can, you know, based on us now knowing who spoke up and who didn't, we can better direct our activism. You know, you're unlocking through these tools, you're unlocking new forms of activism. You know, you're just kind of giving it shape and giving it a way to live. And I think it's great. That was just like, I see it kind of all tying together.
Yeah, activism is power.
So
power in your wallet, power in what you record, power in your voice, power in what you say.
So the way I see the modern economy, I feel like there's two major forms of currency. You have money and you have attention.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're talking about like kind of like two sides of the same coin of like what I imagine is a way for me to direct my voting power with my green dollars, as well as, you know, what you're describing is a way to aggregate where our attention goes in stopping the unjust treatment of people. It kind of feels like all within the same theme.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have to go, Irfa?
No. They were just asking if I was going to eat.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got the same questions from my lady. She's asking too.
I mean, this was incredible.
Thanks for listening to me, guys.
Was this helpful?
Yeah, of course.
Was it fun? Was it helpful? What'd you think, Irfa?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Did I have fun? People listening to what I had to say? Fuck yeah! Who would say no to that? It's every girl's dream.
Yeah.
And I think we're able to take something that's like this and actually make it tangible and approachable.
Yeah, I mean that's why it was important. I mean that's why you two. An idea doesn't mean shit unless you can execute the idea, and that's why you guys are here.
It's a multiplier.
You hear me, Nicholas? You hear me? Eli hears me.
I hear you. I hear you. I guess, you know, I guess we're into kind of the feedback phase, right? Like, what can we provide to help you best? Because our idea was doing this kind of rapid fire, people coming on under the umbrella of a certain theme, giving their ideas, and then us giving away cash. So, you know, not to say like cash is going to like get us there, but it's more so one, to get feedback, two, to give an audience, and three, just to support the creators and kind of give you the resources to head in the right direction. Like, how can we help? Obviously it's like, yeah, engineer this platform, but you know, we're just trying to figure out like, what are the takeaways and like, what do we do with this information after like the aspiring entrepreneur technologist comes on and we share the idea and give our feedback.
Yeah, I think money is a good incentive to make people feel like their idea matters, what they're saying matters, and in just how humans function and how we perceive our value is through money now. It's not through human life. It's what value. It's what $ value I give back. So that's why having a $300 prize, or however you want to phrase it, to give a good idea will get people to feel like their idea matters. And it's kind of fucked up to think about, because I don't need money for me to realize that, but most people don't think that way.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, again, like the things that I could provide today are attention and green energy in the form of money. Is there anything else you feel like we could provide that will add value to where you sit and like what your ambitions are, like leveraging us as connections or the community's connection?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
See, I'm the wrong person to ask about this, because I wouldn't say I'm the normal person when it comes to that stuff. I see myself as more of a value than just $.
Right.
So I'm not the person that you'd be reaching out to, I would say.
Yeah. Like reaching out to in terms of like cash incentive.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
I don't need any incentive.
Yeah.
For me to feel like again, we're in the selfless stage. Yeah, I don't need any incentive. The only thing that matters to me is it's getting an idea across that will help people.
Yeah.
I guess my incentive is people listening to that idea.
Yeah, and I think that's also something that I'd be curious to, because I feel like the next stage of this would be, ideally if we get into a process, right, and have a process down, it'd be making these public and providing a way for people to get in touch with you, if they, and because one thing that I found really interesting is it's wild how certain people come to the same conclusion. Like Nick, you were telling me last week, the homie you work with.
Yeah.
The same exact, very specific, same idea. And it's like, I feel like by putting this out and providing a way to get in touch, it provides a way for those other people to kind of congregate around it. Or if they have resources that they want to contribute to it, right? I think that, do you think that would be helpful? Probably.
I think my incentive would be to build a community. I
Right.
think, like I said, I really value time.
Exactly.
I really value time, and I value people listening to me. And to me, that's worth more than $300. So if my concept of giving an idea would be that I can get a community out of it.
You're right. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, because one of the concepts that we were kicking around is actually like doing a write-up on the different ideas and then sending it out to the greater community, is like the network, and saying, hey, here's an idea encapsulated into an email with a breakdown of like, here's technology recommendations, here's what they're going for, da 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 da. Like, I guess that could be another way to help you, of like taking this idea, encapsulating it, and then sending it out to people who can help in that way and actually like putting it together. I'm just trying, like how can we best support you? I guess it would be the next question.
Yeah, I think the thing, and Eli like mentioned, the reason why you guys were doing this is to bring people together that align with the same values and maybe even the same idea. You know, at the end of the day, we all think similarly through our experiences. So there's no surprise that there's 200 people that probably have this idea already. The only difference is that someone executed the idea. And that separates the one from the 199. And so I think the important takeaway with what you guys are doing is that you align people with similar ideas that come with different things that they can bring to make this idea happen.
Yeah.
So I can come with a voice for it, or a reasoning, or a goal, or an objective, you know, and then you two, for example, in this situation, can come with whatever you can to make this happen. But we all believe in that.
Right, for sure.
I feel like it's going to be a very interesting balance between the selfless and the selfish, right? Because people are at different stages in their progression, right? A lot of people, I feel, especially the ones who I talk to, you know, they are in this to a certain degree for selfish reasons. They're trying to establish independence and financial independence. And I feel like it's very rare to have someone who's this selfless, who says, okay, take this thing and run with it. You know, even a lot of the guys who I talk to personally every freaking day of the week about different ideas, they're very hesitant to come on because these recordings will be posted to YouTube. Like, well, I'm not sharing my idea. Whereas it sounds like you want us to push this out just so somebody will do it.
Yeah, I think the difference is, and I've come to realize this, is that money doesn't mean happiness to me. And I think that the journey that every person needs to go through is what will make you happy, what values make you happy. And for the longest time, people gave us a textbook idea of you do X, Y, and Z, and it'll lead you to happiness. And I did that. I mean, I was always top of my class. I had my friends, I had whatever, I had my adventures, I had fun, I went to medical school, I'm gonna do all this. And obviously, like, there's a certain level of like money that I'll make or whatever. And going through that journey, I was like, this isn't what's making me happy. Yeah. And you look back at all these people and kind of, I think suicide and mental health awareness is making a point. And you're starting to see that people, even with a lot of money, aren't happy. And so it just comes down to like, what are your real values? Because why are you valuing money so much? You know, what idea does money give you? And for a lot of people, it means that they'll be able to live this free life. And if you break it down even further, what does this free life mean? I think at the end of the day, everyone just has three ultimate goals, right? One is to find out who you are. It's to see where your place is, and it's to see how your happiness fits into the first two. So I think it's important to kind of, you're not, like I said, you're not talking to, like, I'm at a selfless stage. I think a lot of people that you talk to, and also you have to, it's kind of like biased of me to say, because I'm not ever going to worry about money. I'm never going to have to struggle. But a lot of the people that will pitch these ideas may not be in the position that I'm in. So to them, that $300 means something. To them, that idea means something. So I don't know who these other people are. So I can only speak from my perspective, but you never know, to them it may be different.
Yeah, no, I really, I hear you. Yeah, because no, you go ahead. I've talked enough.
I was just going to ask, would it be interesting for you to watch other people's ideas? Like, is that something that you would, if it was available to you, is that something you'd watch or be interested in or want to be curious about?
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's a reason why we listen to podcasts. There's a reason why we go on Instagram. It's not us seeing our own things. It's not us just seeing our friends' things. There's a reason why people click hashtags. They're bored of seeing the feed that they want to see. They want to see what other people have to say. And so, yeah, I think and that's why I really value this. I think that it's important. Like right now, we had a very sort of biased conversation on this because it's only the three of us and we only think the same way. It's important. It'd be an interesting conversation if we had someone that didn't think like us. If we had someone that was very money hungry hop into this conversation, it would be a very different conversation.
A very different pitch as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be this candid and open.
Yeah.
So Irfa, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a web show next Tuesday. Okay. And, you know, we'd really like to reach out to other people who we even have a working title, not saying this is the title, but you want to call it the Anti-Racism Evolution. Where we talk about all the different technologies around this post-racist movement that's happening before us. Because again, I don't think we originally want to do this around like any idea or any concept that you want to pitch, but I felt like we both feel like it's not appropriate to talk about anything else besides what's right in front of us.
We got to keep this movement going, this conversation going. So no, I agree with that. Definitely a working title because I think it's a mouthful.
Yeah. What would you call it?
I got to sleep on that. No idea. Wait, I was standing at this protest and she goes, there will be no rest until there's a rest. And I was like, oh my God, I have the perfect protest line. I'm like, there's no rest till there's a rest, till the laws come correct. And I go to some person next to me and I was like, yo, like this is a fire protest line. And she goes, yo, I can't even say that without mumbling it. And I was like, yeah, it's a mouthful. So it's back to what you were saying. It gets the message across, but it's a mouthful. We have to understand the three of us right now are not the norm. We're not your average human, and everything that we create is for that. It's for it's for the public, for the average person. And so we need to attract that, and that those are the ideas that get places. It's what Steve Jobs said when he released the iPhone and his MacBook. The reason why the MacBook their software did so much better than Microsoft was because it was for the everyday person that didn't know how to use a computer. It was user friendly, right? That was the term that he used. So it's the same thing here. You need, now it's different. You need the word to be user friendly. You need the app to be user friendly. You need the idea to resonate to be user friendly.
Yeah, it's got to be approachable.
That's why all these big companies do these like surveys, or I don't know, I'm missing the word, where they like bring the person and they pitch these ideas to them and see how they react.
Mm-hmm. It's like research.
Yeah. They do research.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, we're gonna work on the title. But the ethos is we want to get more people like you who have ideas in terms of how we can heal, or how we can defend, or how we can come up with these new contexts of protest, and get them and give some money away and some support away in whatever form that takes. You know, I just want to be sure that you're walking away from this with some sort of value, right? If it's in the form of attention, if it's in the form of money, if it's in the form of actually putting this idea out. Like our original ethos was we're going to take our own ideas and some, like No NDAs was the name of no non-disclosure agreements was the name of the whole thing. It's like just open ideas and sharing. So I'd love for you to just walk away with it. You felt like you got something out of this.
Yeah, that to me is worth $1,000.
Yeah.
To walk away with some value. And that's how I'm walking away from this, an hour of this conversation, $0 in my pocket, but $1,000 in my mind, because you guys heard me.
Yeah, just for the record, I mean, not that you want this, but you know, we still have the bag for this time period. But no, like you're expressing.
Wow.
I think a good, you know, it'll also be an interesting take on this. We give them the option. Either you can take the cash or you can donate to charity of your choice.
Yeah, and that's important. I think it was so funny because Sephora, which F Sephora for so many things. Did you see that? Did you hear that they laid off their worker via phone call? And in order to work at Sephora again, you have to apply again. And then they went ahead, and so anytime you spend money at Sephora, you get these beauty insider points, right? So $500 you spent, and makeup's expensive, so people really collect these points. So these are points that basically meant that you would get free stuff from Sephora. But in return, Sephora went out and put this whole thing where it was like, oh, you can use your beauty insider points. Instead of getting free stuff from us, we'll donate to these charities.
Oh, wow.
And people they're like, oh my gosh, Sephora, it reclaimed itself. It's this great thing. When in actuality, you think about it, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
They were able to manipulate your mind to think that you had enough power to give back, when in fact you spent this money, therefore you should honestly deserve whatever the points is. And you know what Sephora should have said? They'll match your points. Wow. And you can have your points and give money back too. But they were smart enough to know what the average person says things believe and what they value. And so they made this. And I read it the other day and I was like, I don't understand how people still support Sephora. So I think your charity thing is a great idea because people really believe in it. They want to believe that they're worth more, and they have a stance. And I think you'll get more ideas and more people hop on.
I agree.
If you told people like, hey, you can either take the 300, you can donate it to any charity that you'd like.
Okay. What charity you want? You win? Because what charity would you like us to donate it to?
We have to think about this. I have to think about it.
Yeah, you don't have to decide now, but whatever it is, we'll donate it, and I don't know.
Wait, am I the winner actually?
Yeah, definitely.
No way! Wow, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, I feel like it's a really good approach, and man, I'm just so grateful. I'm very grateful because you've given us so much insight as to how we can provide value and like just really just kicking around with these things. Like it's funny because you always look for the thing that you would do for free, and you know, and try and create that into a viable, you know, sustainable wheel to push the world forward. And I really feel like just based on this conversation that we might have found something that really can progress a lot of these ideas and actually turn them into reality. And the fact that you're willing to participate and let your voice be heard and give us the opportunity to do something with this information, even if it's just putting this video on YouTube or wherever and chopping it up. It's like, it's amazing. Really, really couldn't have asked for like the better first go at this.
Wait, I appreciate that so much. I think there's nothing more important in the world than feeling valued. And both you guys, I mean, Eli makes me feel that every day. But this conversation also really made me feel that. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So
yeah, let's make things happen. I believe it. I hear you. I hear both of you. I believe in you.
We'll follow up with like next steps. We're still trying to figure out how to like actually take these ideas and like iterate them into reality. But we'll follow up with some stuff for definitely whatever charity or charities you choose. $300 is going there, and we'll tag you and all that stuff. And I always ask permission. Is it okay if we upload this to YouTube? Just kind of the first go with this thing. I wish I would have gotten the first part on tape. Oh my God, that's my biggest regret, this thing. So,
first and many, right?
Yeah, many.
Honestly, I'm very grateful as well. Like there was a while when I was just watching. I was just so engaged and so so appreciative and so grateful for the conversation that's happening and for the exchange that's happening, and I think that is the power of ideas, right? Is that you can actually share them and they can evolve, right? And they can evolve and they take on a life of their own. And also just like watching y'all riff was just warmed my heart to just know that there are people like you too in the world, and people like you too that, and that y'all got to meet, right? It's like
For
nice.
Sure. And I think there's so much beauty in listening.
What's happening, that's activism. That's a form of activism, of actually like, okay, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? And how do we respond to this? So yeah, thank you both.
Yeah, there's so much beauty. I think what appealed to me in psychiatry was there's so much beauty in listening. You just sit down and listen. A lot of people like to talk, myself included. And it took me a little bit in my journey of these 3 years of being in med school to realize that a lot happens in the silence. A lot happens just sitting and listening. People feel more included, important, and valued when you just sit and listen to them. All our conversations always start off with, so tell me what brings you in today, or how are you feeling today? And there's so much power in that because it changes the narrative back to them and it allows them to feel powerful. And I think the main concept that we got out of all of this, and even back to what Eli was saying, that we got a chance to connect, was the power in someone's voice, the voice to speak, and in opposition for someone else to listen. And we got a chance to do both of that.
Yeah.
So
wow.
We're winning.
Damn. Yes, we are.
I feel like I was in a TED Talk. This is cool.
Yeah, this is dope. I mean, it's also fascinating because like I'm just before, because we're in those very early stages. Like, how do we provide value? And like, I didn't even think of like the content and like the listening and that iterative loop that is being like a part of the value prop. But the truth is, I feel like a lot of people can listen to the passion that you just brought to the table, and even like the path to victory in terms of like, this is how you can actually make this happen, and like recontextualize that into their own sort of protest. I felt like we covered a lot of things. It's extremely valuable. Yeah.
Going back to how I think my suggestion would be to ask people what makes them feel valued.
Yeah.
And to let people answer that. And for some people that may be money. For other people, for example, for me, it's just like someone listening to me. Yeah. It's so different for so many people. There's probably points of value that we didn't even realize that people have.
For sure.
So maybe set that out there and like kind of start off with that narrative. Just like what makes you feel valued.
I agree, because I think, and I do like the approach of giving to charity, because I think just giving cold hard cash away, I think it sets a tone. It sets a certain tone, right? If you see that in the description, there's just a different tone, right?
It'll attract different people, and that's what you want.
Yeah. So I like that approach of, starting at that point, right? Of like, what, what makes you feel valued, right? And understanding that from enough people gives us a value proposition. It gives us the right.
Yeah. I mean, even like thinking back to the people you're trying to attract, they're like, I'm in the indie hacker community. Like I love working with entrepreneurs in early stages who are aiming to build these big businesses. And the truth is, like, that is going to attract a certain cohort of person. And what's interesting is, even from a languages of love, right? Like
I was thinking the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I've kind of picked up on the telepathy. Just having you as a psychiatrist.
We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah. Same frequency. We're coming at this from a gift giving perspective where, maybe we have to reevaluate, how to best provide support, whether it's through action, right? Or if it's through all these different avenues that we really haven't explored outside of providing immediate incentive and value.
Yeah. There's so much. I'm just like bouncing off ideas in my head of what I've heard will give people value. And I think it's actually a really cool concept if you dive into it and then they'll have the medium to do that and reach out to a lot of people. That could be a massive conversation in itself, but also will give you more and better ideas because you'll reach out to other types of people.
Yeah, definitely. Especially in
so I'm
these
gonna
times.
go eat because I'm starving.
I need to pee.
Yeah. Irfa, thank you so much. E, I'll follow up with you I'll call you after this call. All right.
Cool.
I'm walking home. All right, Irfa, thank you so much. We'll follow up.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you guys do. I hear you. I'm about this. I back it up all the way.
Yeah. We're about the citizen journalism app that you
Okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
All right, guys.
Peace.
All right, guys. Thanks
Stay
again.
safe.
Bye. Bye.